live news that is coming in. The 7th edition of the India Mobile Congress, Asia's largest tech event, is underway with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in attendance. Let's cut across live to that. There you go. The Prime Minister in attendance. Bear in mind, big plans for this 7th edition of the India Mobile Congress. Prime Minister Modi is set to award 100 5G use case labs to educational institutions across the country to develop 5G applications that will foster innovation across socio-economic sectors and build a 6G ready ecosystem right here in India. 100 5G use case labs to be awarded to educational institutions at the India Mobile Congress. Very much the big headline coming out of it, but the idea here for an event like this, and why is the Prime Minister himself present? Because this is a flagship technology event that aims to strengthen India's position as a developer, manufacturer and exporter of key cutting-edge technologies. It's a 3-day event that is taking place at the now famous Bharat Mandapam at the Pragati Maidan in India's capital, New Delhi. We just got visuals just a short while ago from Prime Minister Modi in conversation with some huge India Inc. icons. There was Mr. Sunil, Bharti, Mittal that he was in conversation with. And there you go on your screens. You have Mr. Kumar, Mangalam, Birla as well in conversation with Prime Minister Modi. So the who's who of India Inc., the biggest of the leaders of corporate India in conversation with India's Prime Minister at the India Mobile Congress. Bear in mind, it is the 3-day event that's being inaugurated today. Prime Minister Modi at the inauguration of day 1 of the 3-day long India Mobile Congress. Bear in mind, there already exists a World Mobile Congress that takes place in Barcelona in Spain in the month of August every year, which is a very famous global event for mobile phones and related equipment. And there you go, India now posing a challenge to that World Mobile Congress with the India Mobile Congress, and it is the 7th edition. Kumar, Mangalam, Birla in conversation with Prime Minister Modi and other corporate leaders of India in conversation with Prime Minister Modi. Karthik Malhotra is with me here in the studios. Karthik.
Hi, Krishna. Morning.
Very good morning, Karthik. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do, that India as a country needs to do when India wants to make everything from mobile phones to earphones to electric vehicles.
Absolutely. And right now we are actually already talking about 6G at a time that 5G is just about rolling out. And when you talk about 5G, you've got the 3 biggest headliners for the right or the wrong reasons here at IMC. So you've got Akash, Ambani, you've got Sunil, Bharti, Mittal, the 2 leaders when it comes to 5G. And you've also got Kumar, Mangalam, Birla, Vodafone recently acquired, not doing too well. In fact, Vodafone results came out just yesterday, 8,000 crore rupees plus in losses for the quarter. So I think it comes at a time when India is embracing this entire wave of 5G high-speed connectivity, talking about a roadmap for 6G, India hoping to be a leader in 6G, and parallelly even equipment manufacturing, hardware manufacturing happening in India, from Apple's iPhone 15 Plus to Samsung's pretty much entire battery of smartphones being made in India. Apple for the first time exceeding the value of exports in the smartphone category, beating Samsung squarely. And just last week, Google announcing to make Google Pixel 8 here in India as well. So, important moment here for not just the India Mobile Congress. Of course, it's a flagship event. It's been, in the making, in the reckoning for the last 7 years. It's Asia's largest, like you mentioned. But I think India, by default, is the largest consumer of mobile data, cheapest mobile data, and the most number of handsets being sold anywhere in the world happens to be in India. Tag this with other news of other, glass equipment, etc. being made in India, which goes on phones. The aluminium to be made by Tata Steel, which is going to, of course, become an integral component of devices, smartphones that we use every day. So great visuals coming in. I think a lot of headlines are likely to emerge from this event today. So
backward integration and forward integration, everything from the final phone that we make. And we're making everything from the iPhones to the Google Pixels.
Absolutely.
And the backward integration, the metal that goes into the making of the mobile phone. And it is the 7th edition. looks like India is aiming for a 70th edition, and by the time it even becomes a 17th edition, it becomes the biggest mobile congress in the world, beating World Mobile Congress, because the points that Karthik was talking about, India is the largest consumer of mobile phones right now. iPhones sell more, are selling more in India now and selling less in China now.
Absolutely.
So that's what's going on, and India has a great opportunity. It's a great moment in time, as Karthik was talking about, the India Mobile Congress, and the fact that the Prime Minister himself is over here, is sending out a message that India wants to dominate electronics manufacturing in the future.
India is actually well poised to do it, because if it's not China, where else do you manufacture? Where do you get access to labor? Where do you get access to land? Skilled labor, not just labor, skilled labor. So I think what would really need to come out of for any confidence building measure for more equipment manufacturers to come into India is this whole silicon revolution and the semiconductor revolution that has to happen in India. So I think we'll get there, one thing at a time. Of course, great rates at which we get high-speed internet, excellent penetration of 5G, excellent penetration of broadband, and now equipment manufacturing happening in India. I think all of this is definitely going to go well for India.
All right, fingers crossed. It is, as we've been talking about, day one of the India Mobile Congress. So after 3 days, we will know all that has been accomplished at the India Mobile Congress. But time now to move on away from that on the show here on Business Plus and talk about something that impacts you, me, and just about everybody, and that is the new set of rules that the Reserve Bank of India has now come out with as far as the all-important FDs or fixed deposits are concerned. Karthik, talk to us. We are, at a time where everybody is wondering, are fixed deposits actually giving a better return, stable returns as compared to some of the more, market-linked products, because of the kind of volatility and uncertainty in the markets. But talk to us about these new rules, and more importantly, my question is that will these new rules entice people to put money in fixed deposits or push them away?
Well, I think they should entice more people, especially the richer people who are a little more risk-averse. That very, very small category of people. So what has RBI really done? I think, to put it simply, to answer your question, I think any financial advisor will tell you that markets give over a long term better returns than fixed deposits. Your tax deduction on market link, whether short term or long term, is likely to be lower than the tax on fixed deposits and the returns that you get from fixed deposits, which get added back to your income, so you don't have short term capital gains or long term capital gains depending on your holding period. But I think coming to the critical changes which RBI has done, I think let's define. RBI is saying that it is raising the threshold on non-callable term deposits. What are those? So a non-callable term deposit is a fixed deposit that you cannot withdraw until it reaches its maturity. And a callable term deposit or a fixed deposit which is callable is something you can liquidate even if it doesn't reach its maturity period. Now, RBI is saying that banks hold it. You had a threshold of 15 lakh rupees, and 15 lakh was the limit until which people could withdraw or break a fixed deposit. Raise that threshold to 1 crore rupees. That means offer products, offer fixed deposits in the 15 lakh to 1 CR product category or deposit category, which could be withdrawn by individuals. So individuals now not likely to be restricted by this 15 lakh rupee threshold when it comes to withdrawing the investments they are making in fixed deposits. Now, what were banks doing until now? Banks would let you invest in fixed deposits up to a value of 15 lakh rupees, which you could break at any time of your choosing, not wait for it to mature. And anything above 15 lakh rupees going up to 2 crore rupees in one particular linked deposit would give you higher interest rates. So, for example, SBI would offer a 15 lakh to 2 crore rupee callable, non-callable fixed deposit, which would give you a return of 7.1% per annum, as opposed to a callable in the same category giving you 6.8% interest. So banks wanted you to park your money for longer with the bank, live with that assurance that I have this money to invest elsewhere and hence pay you a higher interest rate. RBI is saying that threshold of 15 lakh rupees only is too little. Take it up to 1 crore rupees. So investments made up to 1 crore rupees in a single fixed deposit should also fall in the callable category or the withdrawable category. So that's the one little change that RBI is making.
Well, it's fantastic, which means the ticket size of an easily withdrawable fixed deposit has now been taken up more than 6 to 7 times.
Absolutely.
That's
from
what
15
it means.
lakh to 1 crore rupees.
That's a big difference. It's a quantum leap. And I would say, in my humble opinion, that makes fixed deposits that much more attractive.
That much more lucrative. But I think banks will obviously find ways to not offer the non-callable rates of 7.1% SBI, for example, and the interest rates would reduce. But at least you have the option of parking your money in an instrument which you can easily break, withdraw without really going through the hurdles of paying a penalty or dealing with the bank on a regular
exactly.
basis.
It's not an ELSS or one of those things,
true.
or a ULIPs or one of those things. By the time you take it out, man,
the value is all lost.
It's all lost. So great news over there as far as fixed deposits are concerned. But we're going to take it to another world, from Reserve Bank of India to the world of rice and rice reserves. Clearly, India's rice reserves are doing really well. Just a few months ago, we thought we didn't have enough rice. We were cutting down on exports of rice to every single country. Now we're slowly relaxing controls as far as rice exports are concerned. We are exporting to the UAE and a bunch of Gulf countries. And now you have the export price of rice itself getting slashed, isn't it, Karthik?
Yeah, so what we're talking about specifically here is the export of Basmati rice. So what had the government of India done? In September last year, government had put a restriction on India exporting rice, white rice of all kinds, to any country.
Right.
Why? Because we were dealing with inflation. We wanted to ensure that there is enough supply of rice which can cater to the demand of the domestic population, and hence had curbed export of rice. That export of non-basmati white rice eased for a few countries up to a certain limit, and no more than that prescribed limit for each country set specifically. And those easings started in May, June, July onwards this year. Now, what the government did in August 27th to be precise, is that it realized that the white rice exports which were restricted were actually being offset by basmati rice exports, or white rice being branded as basmati rice and being exported, because there were no curbs on basmati rice. It's the premium, more expensive rice. So government on 27th of August put a minimum export price or a floor price of exporting basmati rice to $1,200 per ton. And that sent the entire exporter of rice community reeling under, this pressure of not being able to sell, not being attractive to foreign buyers of their produce. And over time, multiple rounds of conversation, negotiation with the government, eventually coming to a point where rice exporters telling the government that, hey, we are losing business to Pakistan. Pakistan also exports basmati rice, exports it without any restrictions. So bring down, lower this threshold that you've set of $1,200 per ton. And just yesterday, finally, the government has signed off on lowering that export price, minimum export price, from $1,200 a ton to $950 a ton. A sigh of relief there for exporters, but they were actually expecting the floor price to be set somewhere between $800 to $900. So even $950 as a floor price is a little high for exporters, but at least not as high as $1,200 a ton. So a sigh of relief, but I think far more expectations for this floor price to be lowered even further.
Right, but at the end of the day, things are not as bad for rice exporters as they were before this announcement came.
Absolutely.
So here's hoping that the relief provides the business, because let's face it, the exports of basmati rice from India literally is India's rice export business.
Absolutely, totally.
It's a huge chunk of our rice export business. For all those thinking that, oh, maybe we export enough of non-basmati rice. Yes, we do, but nothing compares to the kind of money that Indian exporters, rice exporters make from basmati rice, and that's the cash crop. As the cash crop amongst rice, the rice, the whole thing is the cash crop. Basmati is the biggest of cash. So
I think government was also holding on to see what is the output of the Kharif sowing season, and that output has now started coming into market. And yes, you do have a bumper crop, you have enough surplus, and rice and essential commodities like rice, wheat, sugar are always kept in surplus. So if your demand is X, you keep, let's say, 1.7x or 1. Or sometimes even 2x when it comes to rice, and you have enough surplus to cater to any sort of contingency that may arise, because these are essential. So I think government realizing Kharif crop is coming in the market, there seems to be enough quantity, and hence no need to curb these exports anymore.
Right, and rice gets consumed from north to south, east to west, the most consumed grain in the country. So no wonder India is careful about its rice exports, but things are being brought back to normalcy. But we will talk about things that are just stood out for us as far as this morning's headlines goes as not all that normal. A steel magnate, one of the most famous steel magnates in this country, is now on an overdrive. He wants to buy everything from car companies to retail companies. We're talking about Sajjan Jindal, and there was talks for the longest time about Sajjan Jindal buying the MG Motors' India business, because bear in mind, MG Motors is owned by a Chinese company called SAIC, and since Chinese companies cannot have front-end investments in India, there was going to be a stake sale, and Sajjan Jindal was supposed to be in the front line. Now we understand that he has a clear plan, and this is Sajjan Jindal's plan. Step 1, buy a sizable stake in MG Motors and form a new entity. And step 2, acquire Ford's Chennai factory with that new entity that was being created with the acquisition of MG Motors stake. And step 3, even as this is taking place, get some licensed cutting-edge EV technology or electric vehicle technology from China's Leapmotor, one of their leading EV brands in China. So this is Sajjan Jindal's game plan, Karthik. But we're discussing at a time when, okay, this is his auto game plan, but on the sidelines is already also planning to buy Kishore Bayani's future enterprises as well.
So I think you talk about backward integration, you talk about forward integration, you talk about diversification, everything folding into this one story emerging today. I think we've known for a while that, acquisition of MG Motors was, or at least some sort of an increased stake in an Indian entity owning MG Motors to enable MG motor cars to be sold in India easily without any bureaucratic hurdles was in the making. And the front runners also at one time included Hero MotoCorp as well as Reliance Industries.
Right.
And we also knew that Sajjan Jindal is in the fray, but I think today's news very prominently assuring that yes, the only front runner right now is Sajjan Jindal himself. Now, what does it really do? I think number one, for a largely steel infrastructure magnate, it becomes a clear case of forward integration.
Yes.
You buy the Ford inoperational Ford Chennai plant because Ford has exited the Indian markets more than a year ago, and you have a situation where you have this plant and you have this entire assembly line ready. All you need to do now is by acquisition, get SKD, semi-knockdown units of existing technology available in China and elsewhere, and assemble these MG cars in India. Perhaps in some way also further augment your steel business by making some components of that car within India and within that Ford Chennai factory. So at one level, you're talking about this forward integration beautifully crafted for Sajjan Jindal and for any steel company. And at the same time, you're saying that, retail is not for the big boys alone. And if it is for the big boys, here comes another big boy. And we remember what happened with Kishore Bayani and the kind of hostile dismissal of future brands of Big Bazaar, all of that rebranded by Reliance as Smart Bazaar, and the land on which and the retail space on which the future brands existed pretty much overnight changing to Reliance owned. And now I think this future brands is also a new story emerging as part of Sajjan Jindal's diversification of Jindal Steel, saying that we are no longer going to be just a steel company or an infrastructure company. We are not going to be only in the B2B segment, but we're going to be in the B2C segment, where we're going to give you everything from cars and everything that goes into making those cars and retail.
Right. So we will be keeping our eyes on Sajjan Jindal. What he plans to do with Future Group is still more sketchy as compared to what he plans to do with the auto industry. But before we wrap things up on this edition of Business Plus, we have a very important story to all those watching us. And that is one of the doyens of India Inc. wants you to work more. In fact, he wants you to work 70 hours a week. That's not 17, that is 70 hours a week. We're talking about Infosys founder Mr. Narayana Murthy, who's made it very clear that if India has any aspirations to become that superpower in the future, it is the youth in the country who needs to start working harder, work 70 hours a week. Karthik, possible?
I think if I were an Infosys employee today, I would just say, thank God, Mr. Narayana Murthy, with due respect, reverence, is no longer CEO of the company. I think 70 hours, of course, for an Indian millennial Gen Z worker today, I believe is an overkill. I mean, we work with a lot of youngsters. We are not that young anymore. We've done 70 hours.
I know what you're talking about. I am that young.
We've done 70 hours plus consistently over time, but today's youth is not going to give 70 hours to an organization. And, while it's a great idea, it's a fairly utopic idea that, you need to feel responsible for the country's growth. You need to participate in building the country and building one organization at a time. The organization you're working in, contribute to that and contribute to nation building as a whole. But the examples that Mr. Murthy has given are of countries like Germany and Japan, which rebuilt themselves after World War II. does India really need to rebuild itself right now? You know, that's a question that I don't know if Mr. Murthy has a clear answer to. We are fairly well-to-do already. We have a large population and we have enough people added to the workforce. EPFO data suggests that we have enough number of people paying taxes. And I think right now the conflict for the youth of India and even youth, including you, not so young, including me, could be that do we really want to slog 70 hours a day or do we want to find a happy work-life balance?
Absolutely.
Which gives us mental peace in addition to the greed work that we do. And greed work sort of takes me back to what Claudia Golden also said in her research, that there is this propensity of a balance between the male and the female section of society, where if the female section of the society is rearing children and bringing up children, then that female section looks for, that's 50% of workforce in developed countries, looking for flexibility. Whereas the male counterparts are looking for greed work, which can give them more money, more recognition, better job opportunities, and hence, over time, if you have both husband and wife doing greed work, you end up richer, but you end up unhappier. As opposed to flexibility, and if you employ that flexibility, it keeps you poorer but gives you more happiness. So I think a little bit of conflict between N. R. Narendra Murthy and what Claudia Golden said, but 70 hours a week to my mind is a bit of an overkill.
Yeah, especially in the post-pandemic world when we all clearly figured out the meaning of life and the purpose of it all, sitting inside homes for so long, what is important to us. It's not always about that promotion. It's not always about that better paycheck. Sometimes it's about our own sanity as well. So with that, we have completely run out of time here on this edition of Business Plus. Thank you, Karthik, for taking time out this morning to be with us. And with that, we'll wrap up this section. We will be back with Global Business Report. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to News 9 Live.